Hey there, Heart of Junction. Zach. Hanging out today in my this is my contemplation corner with my contemplation couch just here behind me. Show you a couple of things. There's some books, a couple things going on either side. A little bit of tea. Got my Bible here in front of me, and I got a couple thoughts today. I just wanted to run past you guys, and maybe this would be something that would be helpful or beneficial to you a little bit. Today is April 8th, but more importantly, it is the Jewish Passover today. The day, of course, where we remember that God came and rescued Israel from the land of the Egyptians. In Exodus 12, we get the story of what happened on the actual Passover day and how the lambs were slaughtered, the blood was smeared on the doorposts of the houses. The angel of death came through town, killed the firstborn of all the Egyptians, and Pharaoh finally comes back to Moses as he says, "Okay, I've had enough of this. This is the 10th plague. You guys get your goats, get your herds, you get out of here. You go worship your God out in the wilderness." So Moses packs everybody up and he walks them out. And in Exodus 12, we get a little reminder. God says, "You are going to perform this meal. You are going to remember this day forever, because it is the day where I saved you. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians." And of course, you fast forward years and years later, we get to Jesus, and he was crucified on the Passover day. Same time that the lambs were taken and slaughtered for the Passover meal, Jesus was on the cross. That's part of the reason why they had to get him down so fast, because nobody could do any more work after sundown that night. It was a special day. It was a special time in Israel. And he then became the Passover lamb. For years and years, Israel had done this, and were at least supposed to. Didn't always do it well, but they were supposed to fulfill this feast. They were supposed to remember that God had rescued them from Egypt. So there was a situation where they looked back at the past to remember what God had brought them from, and they didn't realize it yet, but they were actually also looking to the future to see what Jesus was going to do for all of the world, not just for the Israelites. And Hebrews in chapter 9, starting in verse 11, says this: "When the Messiah arrived as high priest of the good things that were coming, he entered through the greater and much superior tabernacle, not made with hands, that is, not of the present creation, and not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood. He entered once and for all into the holy place, accomplishing a redemption that lasts forever. If the blood of bulls and goats, you see, the sprinkled ashes of the heifer make people holy in the sense of purifying their bodies, when they had been unclean, how much more will the blood of the Messiah, who offered himself to God through the eternal Spirit as a spotless sacrifice, cleanse our conscience from dead works to serve the living God?" So one of the things we see is that the Passover, that was very, very real, and it was memorable, and it was something they were supposed to look back on and remember every year when they fulfilled the sacrifices. And they would bring their lambs, and part of the idea was that they were being cleansed, at least on the outside, at least bodily, from the sins that they had committed. When Jesus arrived and he was crucified, he did that once and for all. And in the temple, the tabernacle that exists right now in heaven, he is alive, and yet that sacrifice still holds. It's the only one we need. And it's a very, very good thing. But here was what I was thinking about this morning as I was working through some of these ideas. I thought, how cool would it be to just sit down and remember the things that I have been rescued from? Same way the Israelites would have. Remember that God took them out of Egypt. They'd sit down and they'd slaughter the goat, and they'd have the meal, and they would remember what happened that day. And I thought, Jesus has done the same thing. He is the Passover lamb. He's been sacrificed to cleanse me from my sins. What are those sins that I was saved from? What is it that I have come out from And where is it that I am going to? What if I just spent some time today thinking about that and remembering it? And I'll tell you a couple of things I came up with. This is very casual, by the way. It's my Twiga mug. I was one of those guys, believe it or not. There's a little Zach fact for you. When I was young, I really thought that if my list of sins that I had never committed was like long enough and good enough, that would put me in some sort of extra or different status among everyone. And it just doesn't. One of the things when Hebrews says that how much more will the sacrifice of the Messiah cleanse our conscience from dead works and in order to serve the living God. One of the dead things that I was doing, and I didn't even hardly know it until I was sort of saved out of it and was able to see things a different way. One of the things I really kind of did was like, look, I got all these lists of things that I never screwed up. And so it's not that it makes me saved, but it makes me like a different kind of saved or something. And it just wasn't true. It was just wrong. I don't have a mysterious and scary backstory. I was a pretty good kid growing up right from the start. You can ask my mom. She would say that I was a perfect angel. I hope. But anyway, I don't have a lot of things that's like, man, I had this complete 180-degree turn. A lot of the things that have gone on in my life, the things that Jesus has rescued me from, are ways that I was thinking or things that I felt that just weren't the way that he wanted me to be. And that's one of them. I was much closer to a perfectionist than I am now. I really like things to be perfect. That's a bad way to live life. Life doesn't work out that way. But here's what I'd like you to do today. Just like to encourage you. Today's the Passover. Take some time to remember, what is it that you have been saved from? What did you leave behind when you, just like the Israelites, baptized and come through to the other way? It's the wilderness. There's a lot more that happens to the story after that. But what I really want you to think about, take some time to remember some of those things that are in your past. I don't want you to drudge up a bunch of old hurt and guilt and pain. I want you to recognize that you've been saved and rescued from those things. You aren't a slave to them anymore. Your sin, your past, whatever it is that's back there, it's back there. You're free from it. That's what Jesus came to do. You're free from all of it. Take some time though, think about what those things are, and maybe write some comments, get some discussion going back and forth. And I hope you have a good day as we lead into Thursday and Friday and Saturday, and then of course Sunday morning, the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'll be back again someday.